At a family dinner, my mom was smiling. My dad was making a toast. My sister was scrolling her phone. Then my daughter handed me a note under the table. It said, "Call 911. She looked pale. I didn't panic. I did this. 17 minutes later, my parents were panicking. Yeah, that's how my Thursday night went. I'd driven 2 hours to get there. Thought I was being a good mom, a good daughter. The whole damn thing was supposed to be a quiet evening at the family's countryside retreat, which is a generous word for a mold-scented, low-ceiling house with suspiciously thin walls and creaky everything. You know the kind. Your niece remembers the bathroom tile more than your heart remembers the sunsets. Anyway, my parents had invited Freya, my daughter, to stay for a couple weeks just after graduation. They said she'd been looking pale, said she needed rest, said they missed her. And I, idiot that I am, believed them. Freya had been quiet since Henry, my uncle, her great-uncle, died. He'd been like a grandfather to her. No wife, no kids. Just an old man with a soft heart and a quiet house full of wooden trains. When he passed, it wrecked her. She wasn't answering calls much, but when I did get through, she always sounded tired, not scared. Tired I could live with. Tired I could fix. So I asked if I could come visit just for one evening. They weren't thrilled, but they said yes. I'm going to say something stupid now. I didn't think anything was off when I arrived. I walked in. They smiled. My mom hugged me. My dad cracked a joke about the wine I brought being actually drinkable this time. Everyone laughed. My sister waved from the kitchen. They'd even lit candles on the porch like we were at some Airbnb with good reviews. And Freya was there, smiling, sort of. She looked thin, paler than usual. Her eyes had that swollen, post-crying glaze, but she smiled when she saw me. She stood up and gave me a hug that lasted just long enough to make me suspicious. The kind of hug that says, "Thank God you're here," but doesn't want to be obvious about it. So I said nothing. I just squeezed her hand and asked, "You okay?" She nodded. Dinner started. Burgers, potato salad, slices of tomato that looked like they'd been carved with a spoon. Everyone talked like it was any other evening. My dad told a story about nearly crashing a golf cart. My mom kept refilling everyone's glasses with boxed wine and saying, "Just a splash," while pouring half a cup. My sister scrolled her phone under the table. The man sitting across from me, the family friend, smiled whenever I looked at him. I smiled back because women are trained from birth to smile when men look at them. I didn't remember his name. I didn't remember ever being told his name. And then it happened. Just as my dad raised his glass for a toast, something about fresh air and family and how we should do this more often, I felt a hand brush my knee under the table. Freya. She was sitting beside me. She slipped something into my lap. A folded piece of paper ripped from a notepad, the kind my mom kept near the landline for grocery lists and passive-aggressive reminders about recycling. I looked down, unfolded it. 2 words, all caps. Call 911. No exclamation mark, no explanation, just that. I froze. She was still looking forward, not at me, staring into the middle of the table like nothing had happened. But I saw her hand shake. I saw her leg bouncing under the table. My throat went dry. My mom turned to me. "Everything all right, honey?" I folded the paper back up without blinking, slid it under my thigh. "Yeah," I said, and forced a smile. "Just potato salad's a bit heavy?" They laughed. My dad made some joke about my city stomach. And I laughed too, but I couldn't feel my hands anymore. What the hell was going on? I looked at Freya again. She didn't look back, but her jaw was tight, her eyes glassy. Was she serious? Was she joking? No, she wasn't joking. And why couldn't she just say it out loud? Because she was scared, that's why. I needed to get out of there. I cleared my throat. "Mind if I use the bathroom?" My mom waved toward the hall. "Of course, sweetheart." I stood up, took my bag with me, just in case. Just in case of what? I didn't know yet. But something in my gut had gone ice cold. The hallway was narrow. The bathroom door stuck halfway, same as it always had. I locked it behind me and sat down on the closed toilet lid like I might throw up. I pulled out my phone. My hand was shaking so badly it took 3 tries to unlock the screen. I didn't call my husband, didn't text a friend. I went straight to 911. The dispatcher picked up in under 5 seconds. "Emergency services, what's your location?" I gave the address. My voice cracked halfway through the street name. I don't know what's happening," I whispered. My daughter gave me a note under the table. It said, "Call 911. She looked scared, She's staying here with my parents. I'm just visiting. I don't know what's wrong, but I think she's in danger. Please." The dispatcher asked a few questions. Name. How many people were in the house? Was anyone hurt? "I don't know," I said again. "But I think she's been, I don't know. I think she's been trying to tell me something. She looks like she's been crying for days. Something's not right." They promised someone was already on the way. I hung up, sat still, tried to breathe. And now I had a new problem. I had to go back out there, sit down at that table, with the people who were either completely innocent or something else entirely. But was I paranoid? Or had my daughter just slipped me the most terrifying message of her life? And now I had to wait. I don't remember unlocking the bathroom door or walking back to the dinner table, or how I managed to sit down without passing out. I do remember the glass of wine still in my hand, though. I didn't drink it. I just held it like a prop, because if I let it go, I was afraid my hands would show what was really happening under the surface. My daughter had just passed me a note that said, "Call 911," and I'd called them. They were on their way. But now I was stuck at this table, with 4 people smiling and passing salad like this wasn't a horror movie in slow motion. One of those old family dinners that starts with a toast and ends with someone bleeding on the tablecloth. I laughed at someone's joke. I have no idea what it was. I kept laughing, nodding, smiling, because that's what women do when they're afraid. That's what daughters do when their parents are looking directly at them and saying nothing's wrong. That's what mothers do when their child is in danger but they don't know how, or from whom. And somewhere between the fake laughter and the buzzing in my ears, my brain did what it always does when I'm on the edge. It went backwards. Because this wasn't new. Not really. I've spent my whole life coming to that place. The one we're sitting in now. The one that smells like mildew and wood polish and burned coffee. My parents bought it when I was 4. My sister was barely out of diapers. I still remember the sunburn I got the first summer we spent here, and the way my mom blamed me for not applying the lotion properly, like I had failed at sunscreen. She said it gently, though. She always said things gently. They weren't the kind of parents who screamed. That would have been too obvious. They were colder than that, polite, distant, formal almost. If you asked them, they'd say they did everything right. We had food, we had clothes. They came to our school plays and clapped and smiled. My mom even packed our lunches. No crusts, color-coded containers, handwritten notes folded in half like mini contracts. Be kind, make good choices, love, Mom. What no one saw was the silence behind the door when we came home. The way affection only arrived when my sister walked into the room. The way I kept trying to earn something that never really belonged to me. My sister could just exist. She could spill juice and cry about cartoons and break things. They'd laugh, call her silly, fix it. I made straight A's and offered to do dishes and tried to choreograph an entire dance routine in the living room at age 7 just to get them to look at me. They looked, then asked me to stop because I was being loud. And I know how it sounds. Petty, juvenile, like some jealous story from a kid who didn't get enough hugs. But here's the thing. When you grow up in a house like that, the absence of love doesn't show up as violence. It shows up as precision. They did everything right, except feel anything real for me. At some point, maybe 12, maybe 15, I gave up trying. I remember sitting on the porch one night after a birthday party where they forgot the candles and thinking, okay, maybe you can't make people love you. Maybe this is just the version of parent they are. And once I made peace with that, I stopped expecting warmth. Stopped needing it. Sort of. When I got pregnant with Freya, I was 20. That's a whole story of its own. But what matters here is this. When she was born, I swore to myself that she would never feel like I did, that she would never wonder if she was loved, that she would never have to earn her place in my life. And I kept that promise. My parents, to their credit, were vaguely interested at first. When Freya was a baby, they bought stuffed animals, sent cards occasionally, asked how she was. But it didn't take long for the pattern to repeat. That same polite disinterest. The affection that showed up only when it made them look good. The babysitting offers that turned into last-minute cancellations. The "we've been so busy" texts that came after birthdays. I never told Freya not to love them, never stood in her way. I figured if they wanted a relationship with their granddaughter, I wouldn't stop them. They weren't bad people, I told myself, just limited, emotionally underdeveloped. But she noticed. Kids always do. There were weekends where we'd drive 2 hours here, and she'd bring her backpack full of art supplies and snacks and the latest book she wanted to show Grandma. And they'd nod vaguely and go back to reading the newspaper. So I let it happen, because they weren't hurting her. They weren't doing anything wrong, right? But the one person who never let her down, not once, was Uncle Henry, my mother's older brother. He never had kids, never married, lost the love of his life when he was barely 30 and never seemed to recover. He lived quietly, ran a successful business, retired early, traveled, donated to quiet causes, sent me books with handwritten notes in the margins. Once mailed me a pair of gloves I'd mentioned liking 2 years earlier, with the receipts still folded inside. When Freya was born, something in him seemed to light up. He held her like she was something rare. He showed up with picture books in Italian and a carved wooden owl from somewhere I'd never heard of. He never missed a birthday, never forgot a school play. He called her his miracle girl, and she loved him back with every fiber of her being. For the first time in her life, maybe in mine too, someone looked at her and made her feel like she was enough, just as she was. She used to fall asleep on his shoulder, said he smelled like cinnamon and coffee and safety. He died 3 weeks ago. It was peaceful, in his sleep, a quiet end, just like the life he lived. But Freya didn't take it quietly. She shut down fully, wouldn't get out of bed, wouldn't talk, wouldn't eat. I thought grief was supposed to come in waves, but for her, it came like a blackout. All at once. No air, no light, no shore. Then the invitation came. My parents called, said Freya could come stay at the countryside house, the same one we're in now. They said the fresh air would help. That family could be good for her. And God help me, I thought it might be true. So I let her go. For 2 weeks. She stayed here. I called. She answered sometimes. Always sounded tired. Always said she was fine. And I believed her. Until tonight. Until the smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Until the silence in her shoulders. Until the note in my hand. 2 words. Call 911. The knock came 15 minutes after I made the call. I was back at the table by then, sitting on a thin cushion over a chair that might as well have been made of needles. My stomach was cramping so hard I'd convinced myself I had appendicitis, or maybe divine punishment for trusting people who wear cardigans in summer. When the knock came, I froze. Everyone else did too. My dad paused mid-sentence. My mom tilted her head, wine glass halfway to her lips. My sister looked toward the door like she wasn't sure if it was real. Freya didn't move. She didn't even blink. I stood. I'll get it, I said, like we hadn't all heard the sound of authority on the porch. The man, the friend of the family, the one I hadn't been formally introduced to, stood up too, just a little. A half rise, like he wasn't sure if he should be involved or just watch. I was already walking. I opened the door. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. No smiles. Radios on their shoulders, still hissing faintly. "Ma'am," said the male officer, "we got a call from this residence?" "I called," I said, voice too high. I swallowed. "It's my daughter. She gave me a note. Said to call 911. She's here. Something's wrong. She won't say it out loud, but something's not right." They nodded. No questions, no raised eyebrows, just efficient, practiced motion. The female officer asked if she could speak to Freya alone. I stepped aside and pointed. "She's at the table." The male officer asked to speak to me out front. I followed him, shutting the door behind me like it might hold in the dread flooding my chest. And then I waited. They were inside for 7 minutes. I know because I checked my phone exactly 12 times. I didn't move. Couldn't. I just stood on the porch, watching the shadow of the breeze ripple through the dying roses in the garden. I thought about Uncle Henry, about the note, about how my mom smiled too quickly, and how the tea always came in the same chipped mug, the one Freya never drank all the way down. When the door opened again, I turned. Freya was standing next to the female officer. Her hands were shaking. Her face was white as chalk. But she was talking. Finally, she was talking. The male officer waved me over. I got as far as the doorway before I heard it. "Uncle Henry, he left everything to me," Freya said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. "They just said I needed rest, that I was grieving, and then they started trying to get me to sign things." I blinked. "What kind of things?" the female officer asked. "I don't know. Papers, a release of responsibility. That's what they called it. But it had my name on it. And the lawyer, that man," she pointed. "He was supposed to be Uncle Henry's lawyer, but he never called me. Just them. He came here, said it was just to simplify things." The officer nodded. Freya continued, voice cracking. "I said no. I didn't want to sign anything. I asked for time. I asked for a phone call. But they took my phone. said it was for my mental health, said I'd thank them later. And then the bomb dropped. I think they were drugging me. The room shifted. Even the walls felt like they took a step back. The officers exchanged a glance. Then the male officer stepped out into the hallway. A few seconds later, I heard quiet voices. Footsteps. They brought my parents back in, then Astrid, then the lawyer, one by one. Now everyone was in the room again, and no one was smiling. My mom stood. This is ridiculous. She's been grieving, my dad added, holding up his hands like a preacher. You have to understand, we were trying to help. She's paranoid, my sister said. She hasn't been well since the funeral. The lawyer didn't speak. The female officer said, We'll need to search the property. My mom laughed. It sounded like glass cracking. You can't be serious. Based on what? Her imagination? We have a report, and now we have a statement. We have probable cause. The officers asked everyone to stay put. Backup was called. I watched it all from the doorway like I wasn't part of it, like I was someone else watching a documentary about a family that had turned itself inside out. They searched the kitchen first. It took 15 minutes. When they returned, the officer was holding a plastic bag. Inside were loose pills, small, round, off-white, no prescription bottle, no label, just tucked away in a kitchen drawer under a stack of coupon clippings. The male officer radioed for field testing. Then they moved to the guest bedroom, the lawyer's room. That's where they found the unsigned documents. Freya's name was printed clearly on every page. Beneficiary, release of claim, estate forfeiture, all of it. Typed, stapled, clean. All of it ready, except for her signature. That part was still blank. And then the basement. I'd never even been down there. My parents always said it was for storage. Turns out storage meant a finished room, with a bed, a side table, a stack of folded blankets. It was clean, almost cozy, if you didn't look too hard. But then there was the bolt on the outside of the door, and the narrow window that didn't open, and the fact that Freya's things were there, her jacket, a pair of socks, a half-finished notebook, her necklace, the one Uncle Henry gave her for her 16th birthday, placed neatly on the table like she was meant to settle in. Except one thing was missing. Her phone. That's what they found upstairs, locked in a cabinet in the laundry room, alongside her wallet. Confiscated for her peace of mind, my mother had said. I didn't cry. Not then. I think I was too shocked to cry. The officers didn't ask for explanations after that. They didn't need to. The man, the lawyer, was taken out first, handcuffed behind his back, face unreadable. My parents followed. My sister last. They didn't look at me, not once. I stayed with Freya. I didn't let her go, not for a second. When the ambulance came to check her vitals, I climbed in after her and sat beside her the whole time. She looked so small, curled up in that oversized hoodie, so tired. I brushed her hair back from her forehead and asked quietly, Why didn't you tell me? She didn't open her eyes. I didn't think you'd believe me. And that was the part that hurt the most. Because somewhere along the way, my daughter had learned the same lesson I once had. When people act calm, polite, reasonable, the world is a little too slow to believe what happens behind closed doors. But this time someone did. If you've never had to hide your panic behind small talk while your daughter exposes a criminal conspiracy at a dinner table, 10 out of 10 would not recommend. But you know what's worse? When they get released. My parents, my sister, the lawyer, all out on bail, pending trial. A nonviolent offense, they called it. No confirmed harm, no prior convictions. Cooperative during arrest. Right. My daughter was drugged, isolated, and emotionally manipulated by her own family. But sure, let's treat them like they just forgot to return a library book. Freya didn't sleep for 3 nights. Every noise made her jump. She refused to be alone in a room, even with the lights on. She kept asking if we were really safe now, if they'd show up again, like this was all just a misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with a casserole. I didn't tell her how real that risk was. But I started locking the doors. Every door, every window, even the bathroom. Because I know my family, and they don't like to lose. It happened on a Tuesday. I'd gone into the city for a few hours. A client meeting I couldn't reschedule. Freya insisted she was fine. She said she'd stay in, maybe read, maybe finally eat something. I almost didn't go. But of course I did. And of course they showed up. When I got home, Freya was sitting on the living room floor, knees tucked to her chest, phone in her lap, face pale. They came, she said. No preamble, no greeting, just that. I froze. Who? She didn't look up. All of them. Grandma, Grandpa, Astrid. I dropped my bag and sat beside her. Are you okay? Did they touch you? They just talked. She opened her phone, went to her voice memos, and hit play. I heard my mother's voice first, syrupy sweet, like she was complimenting a neighbor's curtains. Freya, darling, we just want to clear the air. You've always been so sensitive, so poetic. You see things differently. That's not a crime, sweetheart. Then my father, colder. You don't understand how much pressure we were under. Your grandmother hasn't slept in weeks. Then Astrid, sharp and flat. It was never about hurting you. It was about fairness. That money, what would you even do with it? Then my mother again. It was always going to tear this family apart. Maybe if Henry had left it to someone more, well, mature. The recording ended there. My hand was shaking. I reported the visit immediately. The bail conditions were crystal clear. No contact. And they had shown up, uninvited, manipulative, and smug enough to speak freely while Freya was recording the whole thing. Even the officer who took my statement looked pissed. That night, I packed our bags. We moved out 2 days later. Not forever, just until court. I found a short-term rental in a quiet part of town, somewhere with thick walls, too many locks, and a nosy elderly neighbor who stood by her window like it was her religion. Perfect. Freya didn't argue. She just stayed close, still barely speaking, still double-checking that the doors were locked. I filed for a no-contact order. It was granted in 24 hours. The charges were being finalized. The prosecution was building a case. And then came the interviews. The police separated them. First my dad, then my mom, then Astrid, then the lawyer, one by one. And one by one, they cracked. Classic tactic. Tell each suspect the others have already confessed. Give them a taste of panic. Watch them fold. My sister, the one who always bragged about her loyalty, was the first to turn. Said it was our mother's idea, that she just went along with it. My mom said it was the lawyer's idea, that she never touched the tea, that Freya was imagining the drugging. My dad claimed he didn't know anything was in the drinks, said he thought the locked room was a safe space. The lawyer, bless him, broke completely. Emails, payment records, copies of the unsigned documents, even a folder with printed drafts, including one labeled Worst Case Scenario Script. I almost admired the preparation. Almost. The charges came quickly after that. My father was charged with false imprisonment, coercion, and administering controlled substances without consent. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison, eligible for parole after 4. My mother was convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud and unlawful drugging. She received 4 years. No parole until halfway through. My sister was charged with conspiracy. She got 18 months, served 9 in actual prison. The lawyer was disbarred and convicted of fraud and aiding and abetting unlawful confinement. He was sentenced to 8 years. No early release. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like oxygen. 3 months later, the estate settled. We were called into a lawyer's office. A real lawyer, one who spoke like a person and didn't smirk at children. He handed Freya a thick packet and said gently, "It's yours now." The number in her account was more than I expected. More than she expected. Enough to pay for school, therapy, rent, travel, a life, a future. She cried when we got home. Not because of the money. Because for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. And she knew they couldn't take anything else from her, ever again. Sometimes I still ask myself, was I wrong for not noticing sooner? Should I have asked more questions, pressed harder, trusted my gut instead of their polite smiles and perfectly folded napkins? Because in hindsight, the signs were there. Freya's voice getting smaller, her eyes looking dimmer, the way she hugged me just a little too long that night. I don't know. Maybe I failed her for a while. But when it counted, I listened. And I called. And maybe that's what matters. She's safe now, healing, laughing again. The real kind. Not the one you fake at dinner tables to keep the peace. Me? I've learned that love doesn't mean silence. And family doesn't mean forgiveness without change. So, was I wrong? Or did I do the right thing too late? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear what you think. And if you want to hear more stories like this, hit subscribe.
After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind, or maybe it has brought back some old memories. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories, and they connect all of us. Everyone has their own unique journey in life, and we all try to understand the world in our own way. These kinds of moments remind us that we are all human, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and always learning something new. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with your friends. Your thoughts and feedback are always valuable to us, as they motivate us to create even better content. Every story has its own unique angle, and our goal is to understand everyone's perspective and make our content diverse and relatable. Stories like these help us realize that life's journey is different for everyone, and by hearing other stories, we learn something new. You can also share your own stories with us. Your experiences are valuable to us as well, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave your feedback. We aim to create content that brightens your mind and gives you new ideas every time. If you've already seen this video before, your feedback is still important. With every piece of feedback, we can improve our content and bring a new perspective to our viewers. Today, what we saw was just a small part of the many stories shared on Reddit and across the world. It's a reminder of how we all try to understand life by sharing our experiences with each other. This video was only an example of how we try to connect with others through storytelling, learning about different sides of life. We hope to continue sharing such stories that help us all learn and grow together. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon. If you haven't already, please like and follow for more amazing content. Your support keeps us going, and we will strive to bring you more thought-provoking and heartwarming stories. Until next time, take care and stay curious. **.